Chiam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We must first crystallize the issue in this debate. The PAP is saying that we need an elected president to safeguard our national reserve. To the SDP, safeguarding the reserve is not the issue. The issue of safeguarding our financial reserve is only a distraction or diversion from the real issue, and that is the people of Singapore do not want an elected president. This can easily be proven if the PAP dares to hold a national referendum. At this referendum, the question can squarely be put to the people of Singapore. Quote, do you want an elected president? Unquote. I know the majority of people of Singapore will say no to that question. A national referendum must be held as the issue of the elected president is so vital to our political system. It concerns the survival of democracy and the survival of our parliamentary system, as we know of it today. If the people of Singapore gives the PAP two-thirds majority at the polls, this will be the last time the people shall be voting under the parliamentary system as we know of it today. The real purpose of the PAP to introduce the elected president is to deprive the people of Singapore effectively the one-man, one-vote system. Yes, the real purpose of installing an elected president which has executive powers ultimately is to deprive the people of Singapore the one-man, one-vote system. The threat to the change to the one-man, one-vote system was made by the Prime Minister in the early morning hours of December 23, 1984, after the last polling day. The people of Singapore must demand on a national referendum.
Well, we have the opening statements. Now it is time for challenging the statements and rebuttals.
If I may direct my first question to Mr. Chiam. Mr. Chiam, do you recall that in Parliament on August the 12th, Mr. Goh Chok Tong spoke on the subject of an elected president and asked you to confirm that you are in favor of making changes to our system in order to ensure that our reserves not be depleted?
Yes.
And you said yes.
Yes, we agree that there should
You agree. There should be checks.
There should be checks. We should have 100, 1,000 Gurkha troops if we want to take care of our reserves. But eventually these Gurkha troops, instead of taking care of the reserves, they will be imprisoning the people of Singapore. And that is why we are concerned.
That is why we don't have Gurkha troops. Are you suggesting them?
Well, take another example. If the government, without me asking, put 10 policemen in front of my house, they say, the PAP says, that 10 policemen is to guard me for my safety. But I say, no. They are to put me under house arrest.
You agree?
That's why we object to an elected president.
You agree that it is necessary to safeguard the reserve?
That is not the issue.
You agree to that?
At the moment. The main issue is whether or not we want to deprive Singapore of our
Do you also agree to the need to safeguard the civil service?
By all means. Civil servants, reserves, they must be
protected. And
yes,
some changes have to be made to do so.
These two are not the issues at the moment.
But you have conceded this is the purpose of the proposal.
We are saying that the purpose of the proposal is to have an elected president with executive powers, eventually leading us to a form of government which we do not want, maybe a dictatorship.
How will
and then our reserves will really be lost then.
Can you explain how it will be possible for the president to have executive powers when all he can do is to say no to the government spending money which has been accumulated by previous governments? Not by itself. It can tax, it can spend, it can plan, it can implement. The president has no say, but only protect money accumulated by previous governments, including CPF money.
We all know the proposal, but our innermost fear is that when the PAP is threatened in 1992, and you have the majority, you have two-thirds majority, who will stop you from amending the Constitution further to hand over more executive powers to the president? internal security,
You therefore concede that the
finance,
proposal...
defense.
You therefore concede that the proposal does not contain executive powers, because you're talking about a hypothetical situation which
No.
may or may not arise.
No, Mr. Lee, we are going to establish something in our society, in our country, which is going to be there for ages to come, and we don't know who is going to abuse that system that you are going to establish. What the people of Singapore is worried is that power to eventually land up in the hands of one person.
What about the powers which are presently proposed to be given to the elected president? Do they or do they not constitute executive powers?
Of course they do.
They do, because he can say no.
Yes.
You are aware that we have a Presidential Council for Minority Rights.
Well, if they are given discretionary powers, I think...
You are aware that there is
not,
a Presidential
No, they are not
Council.
real safeguards.
You are aware that there is a Presidential Council for Minority Rights.
What has the Presidential Council for Minority Rights up to date? What has it
You
done?
know that...
As far as I know, there is nothing effective about it.
Mr. Chiam, can you answer the question?
Are you aware or not aware that there is...
Of course.
You know that the Presidential Council for Minority Rights vets all bills before they are sent to the
Well, I
President.
read my papers, parliamentary papers, yes, of course.
Yes. It has custodial powers. It can say no to bills if it deems them discriminatory.
Discriminatory only in regard to certain matters of affecting the
Yes, in limited
community,
fields.
the community at the
Yes.
moment.
In the same way as
If there is going to be racial problems
Yes.
or
It has the
disrupting
power.
harmony of racial harmony.
Is that it has the power.
Yes?
It is an it is not an elected body. Is it an executive body?
We are talking about electing an installation of an elected
Is
elected president. And here you are diverting the issue by saying that there should be a person to take care of our national reserve and appointing of our civil servants. These are only, as I have said, perhaps you do not understand me, a distraction from the real issue. The real issue is that your government is going to install one person with executive powers. And you can please tell me whether or not there is any provision to check Parliament from further giving any more powers.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman is being cross-examined. He should give the answer.
Yes. Straight.
Straight, yes or no?
Yes.
Is or is not the Presidential Council for Minority Rights an executive body? It has custodial powers. Does that make it an executive body?
Well, there's nothing...
It doesn't. Why not say so?
Doesn't say anything about, stopping the use of reserve.
But it has
the
powers.
purpose-
It can
the
prevent
purpose
Parliament from passing bills.
Of
Any
the
bill.
Presidential Council for Minority Rights, its purpose is set up to ensure that no bill would disrupt our racial harmony in
Correct.
Singapore.
And the elected president is set up to make sure that no bills or any other government measures will eat into reserves accumulated by previous governments, specific purposes. Those are custodial powers, similar to the Presidential Council for Minority Rights.
No, they are not. I
Does
do not
that
agree.
make the elected president an executive one?
Yes, of course, if I say so.
And the Presidential
fact is-
Council for Minority Rights is also an executive body?
The fact that the president is able to stop the use of finance without...
Chairman, I think we'll get the debate going if you could answer his question directly, and then we can come back to your turn.
Are you opposed to the Presidential Council for Minority Rights, which has custodial powers?
Well, there's no necessity.
You do not oppose
There
that?
is no necessity for the Presidential Council for Minority Rights. I was not in politics when it was...
You would get rid of it. Mr. Jeyaratnam, you would surely agree with Mr. Chiam that there's no need for such a Presidential Council, or indeed any safeguards whatsoever to the system.
So far there is no law which is passed in Parliament which has been refused by Presidential Council, except I know of one in which Parliament overruled the Presidential Council in the GRC proposal. That is what has happened. You have made laws
that's not true.
to cut out the powers of the Presidential Council for Minority Rights. That is what you have done.
That's not the answer.
Yes,
We haven't got the answer from Mr. Chiam.
Sir, you
Yes,
have done
you want to
that.
respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you were asked a question. Do you agree with Mr. Chiam that we should scrap the Presidential Council for Minority Rights and it has an executive function?
I think there is a confusion of thought here. the Presidential Council for Minority Rights protects the minorities' rights, their culture, and their, way of life here. Now, the Presidential Council for Minority Rights is not effective. Perhaps you have forgotten that Parliament can override the Presidential Committee's decision on any bill by itself passing the bill again with a two-thirds majority. Are you aware of that? So that the Presidential Committee is not effective. My party would like to see the Presidential Committee for Minority Rights made really effective.
But it has in no way diminished the standing of Parliament. Neither will the elected president. Now let me ask you another question. Mr. Chiam, you say the elected president denies people one man, one vote.
Yes,
In America, they have one man, one vote.
yes,
They vote for a president.
but their system is different.
They vote
have
for a
what-
president.
Yes,
Therefore, an elected president does not in itself mean that one man, one vote is
we have
diminished.
got a different system here.
Can you answer the question, Mr. Chiam?
Yes, what is
The question is, in America, they vote for a president.
correct?
They also have one man,
They
one
have
vote.
got an electoral system.
Yes,
They vote for
and they have
other people to
democracy.
vote, president.
And they have
Yes.
democracy.
Yes.
We will have an elected president with powers far fewer than the American president.
Correct.
We will have one man, one vote too.
Effectively, no, in time to come.
Why does that follow?
Because if you have two-thirds in Parliament, and when there is a threat to overthrowing you, as stated in the Prime Minister in 1984, then you will amend the Constitution.
Mr.
You
Chiam, if
amend
we
the
had wanted to
Constitution
amend the Constitution,
to give more powers to the
if
President.
we had wanted to amend the
And that will be
Constitution,
the end of one man, one vote system.
if we had wanted to amend the Constitution, why do you think we did not do so before the general election?
Well,
We have the majority.
it is very
You
complicated.
campaigned on this issue in 1984, if you will remember. You failed.
no, we were against,
You campaigned.
we were against the elected President.
Yes, and you said, if I may quote you, in your first election rally, you said, if the PAP is returned again, parliamentary and democratic government here will be changed to a presidential system in which power will rest with a few or one person.
Yes,
We have not done that.
I still stand by it.
Have
Because
we
the
done
time
that?
has not come yet. Once it comes, you will do it. Your government will do it.
Why do you think we have not done so all these years? Since 1966, there was no opposition in Parliament until 1981, when Mr. Jeyaretnam was elected. And then in 84, you were elected. And in 86, Mr. Jeyaretnam was disqualified and you were alone again. All these years, we have never passed any bill or amended any constitutional provision without full debate, discussion, and public explanation.
That is
Why do you think we want to do so now?
because at the moment you don't perceive the threat. Once the threat is there, I believe, unless you give us assurances, you will go ahead to amend the Constitution to hand further powers. Then
If the
for
threat is
those
there, Mr.
proposed-
Chiam, it would be too late for us to do anything, wouldn't
No,
it?
you can amend the Constitution in 1 hour on the certificate, in one afternoon on a certificate of emergency. 3 readings, 1, 2, 3.
Which could be done without an elected president.
No, you must have an elected
No,
president
why?
first.
You can have a 3 readings without an elected president?
Well, you would not have the
Why?
moral. You would not have the moral authority. You would not dare to. That is the only reason why you want to
So
go
without an
for
elected
election.
president, we would not dare with, we would. It's that simple.
Well,
Can I ask you one last question? Do you understand that the restrictions on the president's powers to restrict spending is only on old money, not new money?
well, that is a very difficult issue.
You understand that?
Because even Dr. To himself says that it's difficult to determine what is old money
Mr.
and
Chiam,
new
you're not
money.
debating Dr. To here. Do you understand that?
We understand.
Why
it is
do you
curious.
object